Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the We're Not From Hollywood podcast. I am your host, Faizel John Momon.
And I'm Brandon Ryanus, and we have a very special guest today, Jay Horton.
Wait a minute. You're not from Hollywood?
Oh, you couldn't tell?
Sorry, I gotta go.
Oh man, we're gonna have to cancel the podcast now.
Have you seen
Sorry.
Grotesque? I don't want to mistake that for a Hollywood movie. No, Jason actually is one of the guys. He has his own YouTube channel full of invaluable information for anyone working in the indie film scene. And I've watched all his videos, and he's the one that actually kind of encouraged me to use Film Hub, which is where I released all my movies, and I am now making a living doing this. So we kind of, thanks to him, his sage advice is very valuable. So if you are an indie filmmaker, by all means, listen to what he has to say.
Dude, I'd love to
And
hear that more than anything.
Oh,
Seriously, doing the filmmaking thing, the filmmaking YouTube channel, it's not a moneymaker. It's just a thing you do to share information, to give your knowledge, and to hear, yourself and other filmmakers that have taken that and then rolled it into making their livings or, making even, I mean, there's some making a lot more money than me. But it's really freaking cool. So anyway, I really appreciate hearing that.
yeah, absolutely.
it's just cool to like be part of. What was it that I heard? I heard a little while ago. I can't remember. It was some master class or somewhere, and they were like, the goal isn't getting to like the riches and fame and all that. The goal is to be in the game. And I mean, I've been looking at your at your IMDb, just under producer, editor, leave alone director, but like I would say you are in the game. You are firmly planted in the game.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I try to be, and I've said it before, but I think the thing that separates me from a lot of filmmaking, YouTube channels or gurus, whatever, is like I'm actually out there doing it and doing it for a living. Like when I started my channel, there was maybe half a dozen like decent sized, like business filmmaking things, Indie Film Hustle or I forget who else does it. But if you actually go back and start looking at those cats' filmographies, a lot of them really hadn't done much. At least as far as producing their own stuff and putting it out, very few. And very few are actually making their living from their movies. They're making their living from educating about filmmaking, which, to my mind, kind of it doesn't exactly negate what they're saying, but I don't take it quite as seriously.
Where's your motivation, right? Like at that point, you are a or what they call it, you're an affiliate link seller. That's your
Yeah, yeah,
motivation. Your motivation isn't
exactly.
a filmmaker.
Totally, totally. And I get accused of that from time to time, but it's, it's not it's definitely financial gain is definitely not my reasons for doing filmmaking content.
Yeah, I don't
If
think any of us have that
no.
illusion. I do really like your approach to it. Like you're very adaptable because I know a lot of people, even in the indie scene, they'll do their first movie ever. They'll spend years raising like three, $400,000. They'll make back a tiny fraction of that and be absolutely devastated that the
Yeah,
business doesn't work. Whereas with you, you're like, okay, we know this is not working. We know things are different than they were in previous years. We want to keep doing it. How do you fix it? And you found ways to just stay adapting, always change, and not just kind of get set in your ways that this is the way film works because it's not the same as it was, even 10, 15 years ago.
totally. I mean, I think life is like that in general, but especially if you're working in the arts, how you monetize the arts is constantly changing. And in filmmaking, I would say just like in the, whatever 100-year history of Hollywood, once about a decade or, every other decade, there's a seismic change in how the business works. Whether it, be back in the day from moving to, theaters, when TV came in and disrupted, and then later, like drive-in theaters disrupted, and then, later VHS disrupted, and then DVD, and then streaming, and so on and so forth. But it just every, about decade, we have something that just upends it. And there are filmmakers, I think the ones that have longevity know how to, like pivot with those changes, and then, others kind of wither and die or get frustrated and bitter.
So, can I ask you on your IMDb as a director, I see your first credit was in 2005. Were you directing features before then, just uncredited on IMDb? Was that the first one?
No, that was my first movie. We shot it in 2003 and then it came out in five. Go
if
ahead.
I can ask you, because I think 2005 is when YouTube first launched, I believe ish, and that's one of those seismic
Something like that.
changes that you were talking about. And like, I guess my question is like, you as a director standing on the precipice of this like new platform being open, and you've just finished your first debut film. What was going through your head?
Well,
What
I really wish I was more cognizant of what was going on,
don't we all?
yeah, but I did not. I'm actually a very late adopter of YouTube. I mean, I had a YouTube channel for many years, but I would just kind of put up trailers every now and then. I was doing nothing with it. Like I literally started my YouTube journey in about 2018. But to answer your question though, what really happened in 2003 when I shot the movie was it was like that year, or maybe the year prior, Panasonic released the Panasonic DVX 100A, which was the first prosumer digital video camera to be able to shoot at 24 frames a second. And remember there was like a lot of hullabaloo. I think the year before, 28 days later, and shot on the
Digital
XL1 or something.
videotape.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
exactly. So like there was a lot of that, and then this 24p camera came out, and it was like, oh my goodness, you could buy this camera for like, I think it was retailing at like 1,500 or 2,000 at the time, and you
You can
could.
get 50 bucks for them now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But like the rhetoric around it was like, this is like shooting on 16 millimeter. This is gonna, revolutionize indie film. And it kind of did. But looking back at it and the quality of it, you're kind of like, yeah, this doesn't look nothing like 16 millimeter. But anyway, it gave us that because one of the things I think almost any filmmaker needs to really get going, like you need kind of a false like naivete. Like
You do.
if you actually understood like the business and the odds and how many movies make money and how many don't, chances are a lot of us wouldn't do it. So you kind of need
Absolutely.
that. So like jumping in on that, and thinking I was going to make $1 million, it was the only way I was going to get started. But
I mean, that's
and
how we
it,
all have to think to a
I
certain
think so.
degree. It's like,
I
yeah,
think so too. I think so too. And to be quite honest, even though now I'm fairly, I'm knowledgeable at the business and I'm pretty pragmatic, but I sometimes I think maybe I'm a little too pragmatic. Maybe like I need to recapture a little bit of that like passionate naivete, like this next movie, like every movie you do has the potential to be huge, to be mainstream, to be, knock it out of
of
the park.
course.
The odds are not there with us, but the potential is there. But
And
sometimes
the
I think,
internet makes it more so.
yeah, totally, totally. So, and I think I can sometimes I can tend to be a little overly pragmatic, you know. But anyway, making that first movie, the camera came out. I just graduated college. We decided like, hey, we saved up money for about, it was me and two friends. We saved up money for about 6 months. Like I was working at Starbucks at the time. I even I put a little bit of my Pell Grant from school into it, and we just made the movie. We were naive. We had no idea how we were going to sell it, where it was going to go. We just made it, and we finished it. We shot it for about 4 grand. To be quite honest, it's a pretty awful movie, but I at the time I believed in it, naively believed in it. Like we kept thinking like if it'll get into film festivals and like the French will love it, like like it's real avant-garde, but it wasn't. But anyway, so again, I didn't know the business. I didn't know how to get a hold of anybody or really, I just figured, it's film festivals and then you get picked up, right? So we submitted to like every film festival in the world. Like, I spent way more money than I should have submitting to film festivals. And, and again, like I was super naive. Like I legitimately thought there was a chance we were going to get into Sundance or Cannes, something like that, you know.
You have to think
Yeah,
that there
yeah,
has to
yeah,
be the
totally,
outside
totally.
chance.
So we did all that for about, that's why the movie took about 2 years to actually get out. Cause we did all that for about a year and dude, we got into like no film festivals. I mean, like almost nothing. And then,
So let me ask you a question that I'm sure if we have local filmmakers who are watching this or indie filmmakers who are watching this, like I've dealt with this a little bit, and I'm curious to know how you dealt with it when you have this thing that's essentially your baby. You incubated it for 9 months, you've given birth to it, it's the thing you love the most, and you send it out into the world, and then the response comes back with like crickets. Like you're not
yeah.
hearing it. Like that'll kill you if you're like you'll stop your career dead in your tracks if you're not ready for it.
Oh, totally, totally. I think it's important to have some kind of realistic expectation for what you're doing. Like I said, I do believe some of that naivete is necessary. That's why a lot of filmmakers quit. It's like you said at the top, they'll raise maybe 100 grand or, maybe a little bit more. They might mortgage their house or they put like their entire savings into a thing. They go all in. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with going all in, but
No, you gotta bet on yourself. You
yeah,
always have
yeah,
to bet
yeah,
on
yeah,
yourself.
yeah. But you also have to understand that the odds, like if you go mortgage your house and spend $100,000 on a movie, the odds of making that back are not good. And it doesn't matter how good the movie is. Your odds are honestly not good. But we do it anyway, and it took me years like repeating that first formula before I actually started making money. I mean years. Like I was working part-time at Starbucks for almost 10 years, like while I was making movies, and I supported myself working at Starbucks. Every now and then I'd make a little bit from a movie, or I'd get hired to do something on a movie and make a little bit. Then there was a period of time when I would get hired as an editor and then director, and then I was able to quit the day job. But I still, it was probably 15 years into my career before I was able to make a living just off the exhibition of my own films and stop, working for
Well,
others.
and
Took a long
that
time.
like you said, and I think Brandon has like in just because Brandon is the person I have the closest contact with in that regard, and I think you've done it too. I think Brandon's perfected that formula of like don't mortgage the house on the film, but
Yeah.
treat it as an investment asset. Like
Right.
you're building a house essentially. Like it's going to be a money sink, and you're going to have to take time to build it, and then eventually it'll pay out, and eventually it'll be worth something. But you can't expect as soon as it comes out that it's going to be like
Yeah, yeah.
gangbusters.
Yeah, and you have to kind of look at your career as like a single house, and the different movies
Absolutely.
are like different rooms or different projects
You
within
know
that
that
house.
you
And
that
some of
is
them
such
are
a
going to work out, some of them won't.
well, and that's what I was actually listening to a podcast about some rapper was talking about it, and they were talking about it in a whole different context. But the context that I took away is what you took, where he was like, "Yeah, you have to look at the album as like a building, and each song is a floor, and you want as many floors." He was trying to be like max it out, but what I was thinking is like you said, you're building a house. You can put as much effort, like each room to you should be the most beautiful room on the planet, like because you have a house that you can build, and like it may not be great to everyone else, but to you, you can go through that house and you can be like, these are the rooms I have built. And I think
Yeah.
that's changed my perspective on filmmaking slightly, just as I've started to like digest that information.
Another thing that's helped me out like tons over the years is I used to be very sensitive like about the movie, whether, feedback or whatnot or how well it does. But like you have to kind of let that stuff go. And you gotta let, you know, like this project is this project, next project is next project. And like I don't get upset like at criticism or if a movie fails anymore. But I also like every movie I'm doing is the most important thing, to me in the world while I'm doing it. But, as soon as that's done, I will continue to support it and, promote it. But as soon as that's done, like mentally, like I've checked
You gotta
out.
be ready to move on.
Exactly, exactly. Because if you're so tied up in the success or failure of a single thing, this business will drive you nuts, man.
Oh,
Drive
it'll
you
eat you up
nuts.
and spit you right out.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even look at it like on the big level, like your Steven Spielberg, like he has a pretty good friggin' track record, but
It
some
takes
he
two
has
in a
some
row.
losers. Yeah.
Yeah, it takes two or three in a row before people just stop talking to you entirely, and like you
Yeah, yeah.
gotta go down to the next tier.
And for us, it's even harder because, like even when we have relative hits, we're still not really, there's still really relatively few people that have heard of us.
There's so much,
It's
especially
yeah, yeah.
especially in 2025, there's so much you have to fight against as a filmmaker between the phone and people wanting like name recognition and being like, what else have you directed or who starred? And like so many things you have to fight against to get people to look at your thing that like yeah, it's each view I feel is so hard won for each indie. Like if you're an indie filmmaker and you have 200 views, please believe those views are hard won and individually they like it's 200 people like Griffin said in our last podcast. If you had 200 people in a room together,
Yeah.
you'd pack out a room.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm starting to do the theatrical roadshow thing, and you like a 200 person crowd is pretty much a sellout at most places. It's a full room, and it's really exciting. But like you transfer those numbers like into digital, and it feels tiny. when
You feel
I
like you're staring up at a mountain and you'll never
yeah,
scale
exactly.
it.
Yeah. Like if I have a video on YouTube that gets 300 or 400 views, it feels like, oh fuck, end of the world. But like it's not. It's all a matter of perspective.
And it's
It
comparing it
really
too, right?
is.
Because you see, there's people out there that get 1.5 million views in the first 2 days, and then you get like
Yeah.
200. It's like, man, like I'm not even a drop in the bucket compared to that. But
I know, I
But
know.
it's,
Like,
and especially you, Brandon, because I think the views, each view counts after you watch a certain amount of time of the film. I don't, as soon as you click, it doesn't count the view. I think it's after like X amount of time. So like people, like again, I always try to look at it as like someone's invested that like hour and a half. Like again, 200 people
yeah.
have invested that hour and a half to watch the thing, which is a big chunk out of someone's day that you are asking of.
and
Totally. I
sometimes
mean,
like you
that's
won't get a lot
when
of views, but one person will watch it and then they'll donate, $1,000 to the crowdfunding, or they'll buy DVDs
oh,
of my entire
yes.
collection. So it's like, yeah, maybe only one view, but if I made a lifetime fan and they go and post
It's
about it
definitely
on
worth it.
Facebook.
Yep. To that train of thought, I just recently started doing horror conventions as a filmmaker. I'd never really done them, never bought vendor tables, nothing like that. I just started doing it. And I lost about probably $1,500 on Days of the Dead Vegas. I think I sold about 1,300, but I mean I spent well over 3 grand, like well over, but like while I was there, like, I talked to probably 300 people. And I would say a good number of those not only are gonna watch this movie when it comes out, The Hard Place, but they're gonna support it, they're gonna share it, they're gonna buy merch. Some of them did buy some merch. I feel like I spent a little unwisely, and I would definitely do my spending different next horror convention. But I definitely think it's like there's a value in that. There's a value in that promotion. I'm getting ready to do Days of the Dead Atlanta and on Friday.
What was the process of like, did you write and direct A Hard Place?
Uh-huh. Yeah. So basically, I had done, so I did, after that first movie, I did, narratives pretty much like one or two a year, all the way through about 2016. So, like sometimes more a year, sometimes less. I was getting hired to direct a lot of movies. And around 2017, I was pretty much producing my own stuff, and I had a pretty bad experience on a movie called The Campus. Just it was a bad production. The production was awful, post-production was awful, distribution was awful. It almost made me want to quit. And I kind of pivoted into the documentary stuff, and I did that for about 3 years between 2018 and 2022, I think, was when I decided to do Craving. And then I was like, I'm gonna go back and do narratives again. Um, but I'm gonna do a little different this time. I'm gonna do them for a little bit more. Like I wasn't comfortable making $20,000 movies anymore. And it's not so much a like scale thing or an ego thing. It's just like it's a pay and comfort thing. Like you want to be able to pay all of your crew a decent wage. You want to be able to pay the actors a decent wage. You want a minimum number of days to shoot. Stuff like that.
You want a set where everybody doesn't feel stressed.
Exactly, exactly. Or at least not has like stress, where
Yes.
everything, like when you're making a movie for 20 grand or less, everything's a favor. Everything.
People wearing extra hats and
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
like everything
Yeah,
has to happen. But if you have a little more budget, then you can like say like, this is your job. That's all you're doing. And here's your money, whatever. It could be $300 for the week, but like,
totally. Yeah, yeah.
and then if there's that one person that's watching their job and you have like multiple people just watching the one job, yeah, way less stress on the actual set.
Yeah, totally, totally. And I just saw from years of wearing all the hats and doing all the business, like I wasn't doing my best job as a writer or director because I was doing five other jobs on top of it.
Absolutely.
So I decided I'm gonna do these. I'm gonna do three like bigger movies. Each one will be slightly bigger. I want to go back into horror because I've done a lot of other stuff. So like I'm gonna do horror movies. I'm gonna do monster movies, and I'm gonna do a trilogy basically of monster movies, not directly related kind of spiritual sequels. So I'll do one that's like relatively small. I'll do one a little bigger, and then a third one even bigger than that. And like so, Craving and A Hard Place were both actually all three of them were old scripts because like I wrote a shit ton of scripts when I first moved to LA. Like, I mean, I think I've probably had around 15 like unproduced screenplays. So anyway, when it came time to do Craving, I just kind of looked back through my old scripts and I was like, oh, this one's pretty good. And I, had a friend that I collaborated with. I had him kind of do a pass on it to update it, and then I did a final pass, and then basically did the same thing for a hard place. And then the new one is like 100% me, but and it's like 85% a new script, but I took a segment of an old script and I lifted it out and put it in there. But
Is this the new one you're doing with the Mahal brothers?
yeah, yeah, that's the Apex Predators Club. Yeah, yeah.
When are you
Yeah.
shooting that?
In June. In
Oh, it's
June.
coming up pretty quick.
Like, dude,
Oh
dude,
wow.
this all just kind of happened. Like, so well, I mean, it's long and it's quick. So, like, back in April last year, I had met with the Mahals. It was on my birthday, in Vegas back in April last year, and I had pitched them, doing a project for them, and they were super excited about it. So, I just basically broke down all my old scripts, and like nothing really clicked. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute, I have this one other one called Apex Predators Club, and it's this. And I did not have the script, but I just pitched an idea, and they like that's the one they loved. So like I said, well, I need about a week to rewrite the third act, and there was no third act. So I went back and I wrote the script from scratch in like a week and gave it to him. And one of the brothers read it right away, loved it. The DP read it, loved it. Like so it's pretty much a green light, but the second brother, who's the one that pretty much like red light, green light stuff, had not yet. So it took him basically from April last year until about a week ago to actually read it and like officially green light it. But if so, I had kind of given up like on them. I was going to make it myself. I was going to start a crowdfunder in May for it, and then they just hit me up like 2 3 days ago. And we're like, hey, we're gonna greenlight this if you want to do it. And I'm like, oh, okay. And by the way, we're gonna do the crowdfunder in about 2 weeks, and we're gonna shoot in June. I'm like, for me, that's exciting. Some people will be like, oh, that's so quick, but I want to get on it and get it done. So I'm pretty excited to get going on it.
Yeah, I absolutely love it when things happen. I've had it before too. I write a script and then someone reads it and then it's just like within a week it's like sign the agreement, get the money. They're 3 weeks later they're in pre-production,
Yep.
and it's like
Yeah.
It's
that's what you want with the business, because other times it's
Right.
like it's been
Yes.
6 years and it's still
Years,
not going.
years. Yep.
oh, tell me about it.
Yeah.
It snowballs so quickly when it does. It almost feels like you could lose control. Like the couple of times I've been on, it's like riding a tiger. Like it's
Oh
like you
yeah.
feel like you could lose control of it like any moment, but you're just like, if I just stay here and stay
Yeah.
focused, everything else will fall into place. Hopefully. Fingers
Yeah.
crossed.
Oh, totally. And this is a really different thing for me because, like, I haven't done a hired, like, and I guess it's not technically a hired job, but it's kind of a hired job. I haven't worked for anyone else, like, had another producer, like, above me as far as, like, raising the money or anything in probably a decade. So, like, that's really different for me. And I do have some, like, reservations about the control and stuff like that. But on the other hand, like I just did 2 movies in a row where most of the major decisions, the fundraising, the distribution, the marketing, it was solely on my shoulders. So it's like it's very attractive to do a project with, other producers that are actually going to bring a team in. That, like I actually don't have to worry about the hiring. I don't have to worry about the location scouting. I don't have to worry about all of that stuff. I can almost just show up on set and direct. And
And
that's
just
I've honestly, even back in the day when I was a hired gun director, like it wasn't like that. Like I
I
was
was gonna say,
no, I was literally making those movies. Like I was doing the crewing. I was basically producing those movies. I just wasn't paying for them. I just I like they were doing like the name casting and stuff like that. But like when it came to like hiring the crew and running the crew and running the movie, like I was line producer slash director slash editor slash
EA slash
yeah,
first
yeah, yeah,
AD.
exactly,
Do you
exactly.
feel now that you're on set and you're not doing all that and you're purely doing the directing, like do you feel like you're just like, damn, I'm not busy enough? Like, are you looking for things to do?
I mean, to be honest, I won't know till I get there because I've
Ah, yes,
in
of
the
course,
last
of
couple of
course.
years it's all been on my shoulders. This will be my first like one in a long time, and I'm already like I already feel like I'm like like worrying too much about some things that aren't necessarily my purview. Like I'm worrying a little too much about the location scouting, or like like we have a studio we're talking about shooting in LA, and I'm grilling them on like, well, yeah, are we going to be able to do blood there? Like, because I heard this one time people were shooting and they got in the middle of it, and the location owner wouldn't let them shoot blood, and we have to be able to shoot blood because this is a very bloody movie. And I'm like, they're kind of like, yeah, duh, we read the script, dude. Like, like we do this. We
But
know what we're doing.
you've learned from past experience just to prepare for every contingency. Like just
Yeah,
have
yeah.
a contingency plan for everything. That's how
hmm
I've learned of like God knows what could go wrong. A bird could swoop down from the sky and shit on the camera, and now we gotta find a second camera.
100%, 100%. But I can tend to be a little bit of an over worrier, so I'm really trying to just kind of I'm just directing. I'm fine. I'm just directing. It's fine.
You mentioned the documentaries. So is that kind of like your model is you can make the documentaries cheaper and quicker, so you make a
Yep.
bunch of them for the income, and
Yep.
then the bigger projects you kind of space out because they're harder to do?
100%. And it was not like this like conscious like, hey, this is what I'm going to do thing. It was just I got burned out on doing the one thing, so I started doing the documentaries as just kind of another way to bring in money. After doing it for a couple of years, I realized that one, I had kind of a knack for it. I can do them like I can do a pretty good quality like low budget documentary, and I can do it in a week. Like from soup to nuts. I could do the whole thing in a week.
How do you, I remember
And
on your YouTube channel, you kind of gave or maybe it was like a Facebook video or something, but you gave a brief description on how you make your documentaries. I found it so interesting. Can you tell us like how you make
yeah.
them?
So, I mean, basically, I pick a subject, and I usually pick a subject based on stuff that I have access to, not necessarily that I'm interested in, but stuff that I like I can get a hold of the people. Like my first documentary was on a dog rescue. I knew a woman that owned a dog rescue in Vegas. She had a pretty interesting story. So I was like, I went down and I interviewed her and the people that worked for her for I want to say like 2 days, maybe three, and then I spent about 5 days editing it and then put it out. I'm hesitant sometimes talking about my documentary stuff and I don't want to sound like an egomaniac, like nobody can do what I'm doing. It's not like that, but like I've been editing so long. And I am I'm fast. I can look at a 3 hour interview and I can condense that down into 90 minutes or 60 minutes like very fast.
Can
Almost real time. And
can
that
I
is yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I was just gonna compliment you on that exact thing. I was just gonna say, like, I'm gonna say you're pretty. If you can manage to look at a 3 hour interview and condense it down into like the relevant information, that's such a hard skill because I've done a little bit of documentary editing, not enough to like be an expert at it, but like
Right.
enough to know that like one of my favorite quotes about documentary editing comes from Ken Burns, and I think he was
Mm,
giving an interview and he was talking about how he also makes syrup. And he was
yeah.
talking about how you need to collect like 3, 4 gallons of sap in order to boil it
Yeah.
down to 1 gallon of syrup. And that's how he looks at
Totally, totally.
documentary filmmaking.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
like maybe you notice it now, like since I've started doing that, I've noticed on reality shows or documentary movies, I can notice when people are splicing together sentences
Yep. Yeah,
like
yeah,
to
yeah.
make them make sense. And I don't
Yep.
think people understand
How much we
what
do
when you
that.
record an
Yeah.
interview, people sound crazy. And then you have to go in there and you have to like essentially not just edit, but also like write a script being like, well, this would sound good next to this, and then
Yeah.
this, and then this is a good lead into this to make that person sound sane and coherent because the
Yep.
way we talk is just
It's not. It's crazy. Yeah.
incoherency.
Even the most articulate people, like you really like just what I'm doing. I'm going like and yeah. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And you have to cut all that stuff out. But like usually what I do, so like I lay out an interview, say the interview is let's say 2 hours long. And now I do a little bit of it. I will admit to this. I do a little bit of it with AI. So like I go into the Premiere
They
whatever
have their new tools. The
yeah,
transcription tool is cool as hell.
so I use the transcription tool. I go in, I remove filler words and pauses right away. I don't even look at it. I just do that. And then if it fucks up somewhere, you just make the adjustment. It saves you hours right there.
Yeah.
And then I watch the thing through like once, and pretty much just like real time. Usually, like I work out or something while I'm listening to it, and then I have a pretty decent idea of what's there, and then I just start excising the bits and structuring the thing, and it's just I make it sound like really easy and quick, but it's something that like I developed over the course of
It's
20
an
years
art.
editing,
It,
and I just have a I have a pretty good memory for remembering what people said and when, like stuff like that. So like I can remember not exactly to the time code, but I can be like somewhere in the first like, between minute 10 and minute 15, they said something about this, and I can find it
and you
in
can pull it
scriptures.
over, and because
Yeah,
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 because
yeah.
you'll be listening to the thing and you're like, actually that would sound good, and then you pull it over, and then
Totally.
like
Yeah, yeah.
it's 100% an art that you have to develop. Like it's one of those things that people, if they don't know, they don't know, but if you know how difficult of an art it can be.
Because of my skill set, like in editing, and documentary is 95% editing. Because of my skill
Absolutely.
set there, I can do documentaries very fast in a quality that's good enough that it's going to make, a floor of money. So I can put those out. If I'm not doing narratives, I can do 12 of those a year. Like when I do a narrative that bites into it. But I mean, even between Craving in a Hard Place. I think I knocked out 6 or 7 documentaries that year, and like between A Hard Place and this one, I think I did 4 or 5, and I'll probably do one more before we shoot in June. So with that, it's like, the documentaries basically I try to do about 10 a year. And those are basically what I make my living off of. And then now that I'm able to raise more money for narratives. I'll do like a narrative every year and a half to 2 years.
But so would you say that's the credit to your success, is never stop moving?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. There's not one project on my filmography that made my career, that set me up, that opened up the doors. No, not one. It's an amalgamation of movies. Like I've produced, I think close to 100 or over 100 projects. I've directed maybe 25. So, but it's through the breadth of that filmography that I make my living from. There's not, like I said, I'd say there's probably not 10 movies in there that I can make my living from over the course of, several years. Like it's been the documentaries have been the greatest gift because like I'm not stressed about cash no more. I'm not stressed if like like on Craving. Like Craving did pretty well financially, but not as well as I had hoped. It's okay. I made enough off of it to pay back the equity investors that were into it, and it made a pretty good amount of money, and it got me enough attention to raise more money for the next movie. And then Hard Place is getting ready to come out. I think it's going to make exponentially more money. But if it doesn't, it's okay. The next one will. And if the next one doesn't, the documentaries are still there.
Where do you see indie film going from in the future here?
To be honest, it changes so fast. I don't really know. I really don't. Like I'm just ready to change. Like I'm doing more like theatrical and drive-in stuff than I've ever done before. I've never done drive-ins or theatricals until A Hard Place. Now I'm starting to mess with that, which is like a 30-year-old, business model. But it seems like it might be more relevant today. I think AVOD's going to continue to be the main driver as far as streaming goes, at least for the near future. And then you supplement with, SVOD and TVOD and stuff like that.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're almost out of time here, so thanks for being on the show. Everyone should watch. A Hard Place is coming out soon, but your movie Craving is on Tubi.
Yep. Yeah, it's out now.
And check out Jason's YouTube channel. We'll put a link in the description of this video. He's got a lot of valuable information. If you are a filmmaker or you want to be a filmmaker, you definitely want to hear what he has to say. So thanks for being on the show, Jay, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Great talking to you, Jay.